Of course, you never know what you're going to see when you're hanging out around the water, kind of like our good friend Adam Gimbel, who was hanging out around his local boat ramp when all of a sudden he heard an argument occurring on the water, where two people were arguing over what appeared to be a cushion on the boat, when all of a sudden the cushion went overboard, and the next thing Adam knew, somebody else went overboard as well to grab it. Fortunately, in this situation, that person was able to grab the cushion, use it as a flotation device while the boat backs down to grab them. But once again, just the wild and crazy stuff we'll see out there, just like some of the stories we'll see in this week's episode of Boating News of the Week. Our first story to make the boating news this week is going to take us down to Louisiana, where this was the insane scene we saw just a little over a week ago, when 5 people were riding in an MTI catamaran on the Tickfall River when all of a sudden the vessel made a sharp turn, launching the vessel and the 5 people on board into the woods. Yet miraculously, somehow, all 5 people stayed in the boat and nobody was ejected during the incident. And even more miraculously, there was a Good Samaritan vessel in the area, saw the incident occur, was able to grab all 5 people off this boat and bring them back to the boat landing, where emergency services were awaiting their arrival. This really is a wild scene and some very fortunate people on board this vessel. Everybody survives, and according to all the reports, everybody's going to be okay in the end, which really is amazing because when you look at these images, that is definitely not the story you would think we would be telling. Now, unfortunately, the MTI, probably not the same fate. This 48-foot catamaran, it's probably valued over $1 million, has probably seen its last days on the water. Our next story to make the boating news this week is going to take us up to Wisconsin, where this was the scene this past week when the U.S. Navy decided it was going to go ahead and launch its newest vessel, the USS Cleveland, an LCS-31 vessel. But unfortunately, things did not go as planned. This was a very public event as it occurred in front of 3,000 people, where upon launching the USS Cleveland, it winds up colliding with the tug vessel William C. Gaynor. As can be seen in these images here, the launch process that was chosen to be used was a sled-mounted side launch. In this process, a bow line is attached to a tugboat and it then pulls the vessel down into the water. Typically, as the pull goes, the tugboat gets out of the way, but as can be seen here, the USS Cleveland winds up crashing down a whole lot faster than the tugboat can get out of the way, causing the two to collide. The USS Cleveland did suffer minor damage, but fortunately, it was above the waterline, meaning that the vessel did not wind up taking on any water. Fortunately, in this situation, no injuries were reported. There is currently an investigation going on to try and determine the cause. Right now, the Navy is saying the believed cause of the incident is a miscommunication between the tug vessel and the launch crew. Our next story to make the boating news this week is going to take us down to Jupiter Inlet in Florida, where this was the wild and crazy scene a little over a week ago.
We just sank. We sank the boat.
The crew seen in the images here decided they were going to go out for a great day of fishing out of Jupiter Inlet. They were in their 30-foot Grady Wide at the time, when all of a sudden, once they were offshore, the weather turned nasty quickly on them, and all of a sudden swells kicked up to be 6 to 8 feet. The crew decided it was a little bit too much and they were going to head back into the inlet, but on their way back toward Jupiter, all of a sudden they lost one of their bilge pumps, and the next thing they knew, one of the engines cut out on them as well. They continued to try and limp back in toward the inlet on one motor, but that didn't last long as they lost power to the second engine. All of a sudden, waves started coming over the stern of the vessel, and it didn't take long, approximately 3 minutes, and their boat had capsized. Fortunately, due to the fact they had already started working their way back toward shore, they were now approximately 8 miles from Jupiter Inlet. The captain's quick thinking was to pull his cell phone out, and he noticed he had cell service and was quickly able to call 911, and the Coast Guard and the Palm Beach County Sheriff were dispatched to the scene. A rescue helicopter, a rescue vessel, and a jet ski were all sent and were able to successfully pull this crew off of their capsized boat.
The last man on board. Got the bird up in the air. Love them dudes. Palm Beach Sheriff.
Fortunately, due to the quick efforts of the rescue crews, everybody was able to successfully be pulled off the boat without any major injuries. Thanks for watching, guys. I hope you enjoyed this week's episode of Boating News of the Week. If you ever see anything crazy happening out on your waterways, be sure to hit us up on Facebook or Instagram and let us know, and you might see your stories over here. Just like Adam Gimbel, Skills for Real, and Swampstick Customs did this week. And if you guys haven't already, go ahead and drop an anchor on the subscribe button here. If not, we're coming to steal your drain plug.